My fiancée told me to use my inheritance to pay off her debt. I hired an accountant and found out it was actually for her ex. I'm 36, and for most of my adult life, money has been a source of background noise. Never disastrous, never abundant, just there, humming. I was raised by working-class parents who taught me to fix things rather than replace them, to compare prices, to never take on debt unless a roof was involved. My father passed away last year. Cancer, the slow, cruel kind that erodes a person one piece at a time. The inheritance he left me wasn't enormous, but it was significant. Around $140,000, accumulated over decades of quiet frugality and the sale of the small house he and my mom owned. It was supposed to be a foundation for the next phase of my life, a first home with my fiancée, Anna, a safety net, maybe even a future college fund for kids we hoped to have. Instead, before the money even cleared into my account, it already had a target on it. Anna and I met 4 years ago at a mutual friend's New Year's party. She was 28 then, pretty in a neat, carefully composed way, hair always smooth, clothes always coordinated. She worked in HR consulting, had an easy laugh, made lists of everything from weekly meal plans to relationship goals. She was organized, driven, sometimes almost performatively put together. At first, I found it comforting, like being around someone who had rehearsed adulthood one step ahead of me. Our first year together was good, steady, functional, adult. We moved in together after 8 months. She managed the grocery lists. I handled cooking. She kept the calendar. I fixed the leaky sink. There were quirks, sure. Her tendency to micromanage plans, her anxiety around finances, the way she avoided answering questions directly when stressed, but nothing alarming. People have quirks. The red flags didn't start as red. They started as faint pink threads woven into daily life. One was how she reacted to bills, overly tense, even when expenses were small. Another was her habit of saying she was handling her financial stuff but never mentioning specifics. And once, only once, I caught her transferring money between accounts at 1 a.m., muttering under her breath, face pale in the glow of the laptop. When I asked if everything was okay, she snapped the lid shut so fast the sound echoed. "Just work reimbursements," she said, not meeting my eyes. I wanted to believe it, so I did. Then came my father's death, the funeral, and the slow, cold math of estate paperwork. Anna was supportive at first, making meals, checking in, reminding me to drink water. But the moment I told her the approximate inheritance amount, something in her expression shifted. Not greed, not relief, more like calculation. She kissed me, hugged me, said all the right things, but her eyes moved in a way I couldn't quite decode. 2 days later, she brought it up casually while we were brushing our teeth. "Do you know when the inheritance will arrive?" I spat out toothpaste foam. "Probably next month." "What?" She didn't answer immediately. She wiped her mouth, leaned on the sink, and said it in a soft, rehearsed tone. "I need to tell you something. I'm in some debt." I froze. We'd been together years. She had never once mentioned debt. Not credit cards, not student loans, not anything. "What kind of debt?" I asked. She hesitated. "Too long. It's complicated. Private. But it's around $120,000. My mouth went dry. "What do you mean, private?" She wrapped her arms around herself, looking suddenly small. "I don't want to get into the details. It's just something from before we met. A situation. And it's getting worse with interest. I've been trying to handle it alone because I didn't want to bring it into our relationship." Her voice trembled. It should have sounded sincere, but something about it was off, like she was performing sincerity rather than feeling it. I stood there, toothbrush still in hand. 120,000. She nodded quickly, eyes shining in that way people's eyes shine when they're close to tears, but not quite there. "I know it's a lot. I know it's not fair to ask. But if we're going to build a life together, if we're really partners, maybe we can use the inheritance to pay most of it off? Just to reset. Start clean. For us." There it was, the pivot. From her problem, to our problem, to my responsibility. It wasn't the request that bothered me. It was the refusal to explain the debt itself. "Anna," I said gently, "what kind of debt is it?" She looked away. "I can't talk about it." That was the first moment the knot formed in my stomach. A small, tight twist of unease. I pressed again. Not aggressively, just steady. "You're asking me to use my father's inheritance. I deserve to know what I'd be paying off." Her reaction was immediate, sharp. almost desperate. Why don't you trust me? Why would I make this up? I thought we were a team. She went to the bedroom, slammed the door, and stayed there for an hour. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall. I loved her. I wanted to marry her. But I could not, would not, throw $120,000 into a black box with no explanation. And yet, I didn't walk away. Not then. When she finally emerged, she was calmer, apologetic, quiet. She crawled into my lap and whispered, "I'm scared. I should have told you earlier. Please don't leave me over this." I didn't say I would pay it. I didn't say I wouldn't. I just said, "We'll figure it out." She took that as confirmation. Over the next week, she kept dropping hints, subtle at first, then less subtle. "Once the debt is gone, we can breathe again. We can plan the wedding properly after this. Your dad would want you to have a stable life." That last one hit hard. Too hard. Finally, I told her the truth. "I'm willing to help, but only if it's done properly. Transparent. Above board. No mysteries." She froze. "What does properly mean?" "It means I'm hiring a licensed accountant and financial investigator to go through the debt documents before I pay anything." Her face drained of color. Not fear, not embarrassment. Panic. Pure panic. She tried to smile, but her voice cracked around the edges. "Is that really necessary?" "Yes," I said softly. "It is." She didn't speak for several seconds. Then she whispered, "Fine." But her eyes told me something was about to break open. What I didn't know yet was just how deep the crack went, or how fast it would widen once someone competent started looking at the numbers she thought she could hide behind. And within days, the accountant called me with a voice that sounded equal parts confused and alarmed. Because the debt wasn't a debt. Not even close. It was something else entirely. Something that made my stomach drop through the floor as the truth finally began to surface. The accountant, Mark, was a soft-spoken man in his 50s. The type who could make even terrifying financial terms sound like bedtime stories. We'd worked together once before, years ago, when he helped my parents simplify their accounts during my dad's first hospitalization. I trusted him because he had that rare quality. He didn't react quickly. He absorbed information like a sponge, then spoke only when he was certain. So when he called me and said, "We need to meet in person," I felt electricity in my spine. We scheduled for the following morning at his office. I didn't tell Anna. She left for work complaining of a headache and a meeting she didn't want to attend. She kissed me and said, "Please, let's solve this soon. I feel like I can't breathe." The irony wasn't lost on me. His office smelled faintly of dust and printer toner. Papers lay in neat, color-coded stacks. He gestured for me to sit and slid a file toward me. Thin, too thin for what I expected. "There is no $120,000 debt," he said. "No build-up. No easing into it. Just a scalpel to the gut." I blinked at him. "What do you mean?" He clasped his hands. "I mean the documents your fiancé provided are not loan statements. They're not from a bank, private lender, or any institution I can identify. Most are PDF edits, and poorly done ones. Fake letterheads, inconsistent fonts, mismatched amounts." My mouth went dry. "She created them?" I asked. He lifted a shoulder. "Someone did. There's no record anywhere. No credit pulls, no collections, no liens. Nothing." He opened the file. Line after line of tiny discrepancies. Fake routing numbers. Missing borrower IDs. A signature copied and pasted across 3 different documents. "But," he added, "that's not the main issue." "What's the main issue?" He flipped to the last page and tapped it. "These transfers." I leaned in. The page showed screenshots Anna had emailed as proof of previous payments she'd made. $400 here, $800 there. Random amounts. The same receiving account every time. Mark pointed. "This is a private checking account under a name I traced." "Whose name?" He hesitated. Not dramatically, not for effect. Just to confirm he wasn't misreading. "A man named Daniel L." I felt something inside me clench. Anna's ex. Her serious ex. The one she never talked about except in vague, rehearsed phrases. It was bad. He hurt me emotionally. I don't want to revisit it. I had never pushed for more. Mark continued. "From what I can tell, she's been transferring him money for years. Small amounts, irregular. There is no debt. She is supporting him. Quietly. Consistently." I sat back. The chair felt suddenly too small. "She's paying his bills?" "Essentially, yes. And the $120K she requested." was to give him a lump sum. I finished for him. Mark didn't nod, but his silence was confirmation enough. My heart wasn't racing. It was slow, cold, heavy. There was a part of me, the naive, hopeful part, that wanted another explanation. Maybe blackmail. Maybe manipulation. Maybe something that still framed her as a victim. Mark must have read it on my face. I can't tell you why she's doing it, he said gently. Just what the numbers show. I stared at the folder. Every line in it felt like a crack running through the life I thought I was building. The world outside the car looked washed out, as if someone had turned the saturation down. Red lights were too sharp. Pedestrians blurred into vague shapes. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was embarrassed. Humiliation isn't a sudden thing. It's a slow, creeping warmth under your skin. I replayed every moment. Her late-night reimbursements. Her vague anxiety about money. Her discomfort whenever the topic of exes came up. Her sudden, desperate push when the inheritance became real. I felt stupid. Worse, predictable. Like someone who had walked perfectly into a pre-laid trap simply because it was arranged with emotional language and softness. Halfway home, I pulled into an empty parking lot and sat there with the engine running. My hands were shaking. My throat felt tight. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I could already see the next move she would make. Crying. Denial. I was trying to help him. He would have hurt himself otherwise. You don't understand the situation. You promised to support me. You're abandoning me when I'm vulnerable. I knew her patterns. I knew the cadence of her dishonesty. She was not a master manipulator. She was just practiced enough to sound believable until someone checked. And now someone had checked. I texted her. Let's talk tonight. Please don't make other plans. She replied instantly. Of course. Are you okay? You sound off. I stared at the screen. I typed back. Just tired. Another lie and a day drowning with them. When Anna came home, she was holding a bag of takeout and smiling in that overly bright way she reserved for situations she wanted to control emotionally. I got your favorite. Sit, I said. She stopped mid-step. Her eyes darted to my face, scanning it. She set the bag down and sat slowly, hands clasped in her lap. What's wrong? I placed Mark's folder on the table between us. To her credit, or maybe to her flaw, she didn't break immediately. Her face stayed neutral for a moment too long. Then her expression morphed as if she were flipping through masks. Confusion, injury, fear, anger. Finally, trembling vulnerability. I can explain. Please do. She reached for the folder. I pulled it back. Explain without touching anything. She swallowed. Her eyes flicked to the hallway, instinctively checking exits, mentally calculating strategies. Then she began. It's not what you think. That's almost always what people say when it's exactly what I think. She flinched. I was helping him. That's all. He went through a rough time. He was depressed. He was unstable. He needed support. I couldn't just abandon someone I used to care about. I let silence hang. She continued, faster now. It was never romantic. It was never cheating. It was charity. Emotional responsibility. I was scared he would hurt himself if I didn't help. You don't know what he's capable of. Her words were smooth. Too smooth. Like they were pre-written long before I asked. You said you had a $120,000 debt. I panicked. You asked me to pay it. I was desperate. I thought maybe if you helped me, I could finally cut ties with him. I didn't know how to explain. I didn't want you to judge me. You lied, I said calmly. About everything. She didn't cry. Not real crying. Her tears were the kind that appear instantly, perfectly, on cue. You're overreacting. People help their exes sometimes. You're acting like I've betrayed you. The level of self-delusion or manipulation was staggering. Why didn't you stop helping him over the last 4 years? I asked. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I waited. She tried again. I was going to. When silence. It felt like a thin membrane between our two realities finally ruptured. I stood up. She reached for my arm. Please. You're making this bigger than it is. It's not like I did something unforgivable. I looked down at her hand. You lied about a 6-figure fake debt to take my inheritance and give it to another man. You forged documents. You hid financial activity for years. Which part do you think is small? Her hand dropped. You're leaving me, she whispered. No, I said. I'm documenting everything first. She blinked. Not the reaction she expected. Only then did I see it clearly. She thought she could talk her way out of this if she triggered the right emotional response in me. But something had shifted. The shock had burned away the fog. I was cold. steady, focused. I'm contacting a lawyer tomorrow, I said, and we're separating our finances today. Every shared account, every auto payment. You're not touching a cent of my father's money. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Then, finally, the real anger surfaced. You're unbelievable, she hissed. After everything I've done for you, you're choosing money over love? No, I said softly. I'm choosing truth over delusion. She stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. I didn't follow. I didn't comfort her. I didn't argue. I sat at the table with that thin folder of lies and felt something heavy and final settle into my bones. The kind of understanding that changes a person's shape. And when she finally came out hours later, eyes dry, jaw tight, she said in a flat voice, "So what now? Are you telling people? Are you trying to ruin my life?" "I'm protecting mine," I replied. She scoffed, grabbed her keys, and left without another word. The door closed behind her like a judgment. What I didn't know yet was that this wasn't her final move. Not by a long shot. Because people like Anna don't vanish quietly. They escalate. And within days, I'd learned just how far she was willing to go to rewrite the narrative. Not just for others, but for herself. Update 1. I didn't sleep the night she left. Not for lack of trying. I lay down, turned off the lights, slowed my breathing the way every therapist tells you to. But my body stayed alert, listening for the door, for the sound of keys turning, for the soft, dramatic sob she sometimes used after arguments to signal she was ready to be forgiven. She didn't come back. Around 4 a.m., the apartment felt too quiet. I got up, made coffee I didn't drink, and spread Mark's file across the dinner table like a crime board. I wasn't hunting for more details. There were already more than enough. But for clarity, for the exact moment in the timeline where her narrative diverged from reality, I kept thinking, how long has this been going on? And then an uglier thought, how long did she plan to keep doing it? At 7:40, my phone vibrated. A message from my older sister, Lena. Anna just texted me asking if she can talk. Everything okay? My stomach dropped. If Anna was already reaching out to my family, she was crafting a version of the story where she was the wounded partner and I was the cold, irrational one. It was something she did in arguments, triangulation, pulling in third parties to reinforce her version before I had even processed my own. I replied, "Please don't engage yet. I'll explain tonight." Lena sent back a simple, "Okay." She trusts me. But I could feel the clock ticking. The longer Anna went unchallenged, the more oxygen her version would get. At 9 a.m., I met with a lawyer recommended by Mark. A practical woman in her early 40s with the expression of someone who had long stopped being surprised by human behavior. I laid everything out. The fake debt, the edited documents, the money transfers to her ex, the inheritance request. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she adjusted her glasses and said, "She was attempting to defraud you. On paper, it's cleaner than most cases. The question is what you want to do with that information." "What are my options?" I asked. She phrased it clinically. Option 1, walk away clean. Separate everything. Block her. Move on. Option 2, file a report, fraud, attempted theft, falsification of documents. Option 3, warn her you have legal documentation and see if she backs off. I felt something twist in me. Not anger, something duller. A tiredness at the idea of escalation, lawyers, courtrooms, drama. "I don't want to destroy her life," I said. The lawyer gave a small, dry smile. "She didn't hesitate to try to destroy yours." That sentence stuck with me. When I left her office, the sun felt too bright. I could see my reflection in the building's tinted glass, shoulders tense, eyes exhausted, posture slightly hunched. I didn't recognize myself. At noon, Anna texted me, "I need to get my stuff. When can I come by?" I replied, "Today at 6. I'll be here." Then, after a long pause, she added, "I hope you're not doing anything stupid. We're both hurting." A part of me recoiled at the phrase "we're both hurting." The way people use shared pain to equalize actions that are nowhere near equal. I didn't reply. Around 4, I started gathering her belongings. Not out of spite. I wanted it done before she arrived. I didn't want to share the small space of decision-making with her again. I packed methodically. Clothes, toiletries, her books, the ceramic mug she loved. I placed everything neatly by the door. While packing, I found a small velvet box in her drawer. A ring, not the engagement ring I gave her, but something clearly expensive. A gift? A keepsake? Something from her ex? I set it aside in the Ask Lawyer Later category and kept moving. At 6:05, she arrived. She didn't knock. She walked in like she still lived there. Her makeup looked perfect, hair flawless, posture straight. She looked composed, almost serene. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." She scanned the bags by the door, then looked at me. "You packed everything." "Yes." She exhaled dramatically. "I guess you're really doing this." I didn't respond. She walked closer, stopping a few feet away. Her eyes searched my face, looking for openings, guilt, hesitation, longing. She didn't find any. "You're making a huge mistake," she said quietly. "Throwing away our life because of something you don't fully understand." "I understand enough." "No," she said a little sharper. "You understand numbers. You don't understand the emotional context. What I carried. What I protected us from." "Protected us from what?" She hesitated, long enough that the silence answered for her. "I'm done," I said. That broke something in her expression. Not sadness, control. Her face tightened, eyes cold. She grabbed the bags and marched toward the door. Then, in the doorway, she turned back. "You should know," she said, voice low. "My story makes more sense than yours. If people ask, I'm not lying to protect you." There it was, the threat. Not explicit, but razor-edged. I nodded once. "I have documentation. Everything." She froze for half a second. Just half. It was tiny, but I saw it. The realization that this time she couldn't control the narrative. Then she left. The apartment felt bigger instantly. Not lighter, just empty. 2 hours later, my sister texted again. "Anna says you're having a breakdown and pushing her away because you're overwhelmed by grief. Should I be worried?" I closed my eyes. Even now, she was rewriting the story in real time. I typed a long message back to Lena. The truth, the actual truth, with screenshots and a promise to explain more in person. Before sending, I sat with it for a moment, feeling something heavy settle into my ribs. She wasn't done. People like her rarely stop after losing control. I had the uneasy certainty that a second wave was coming. Something bigger, more desperate, more unhinged. And I was right. It hit 3 days later, first as a voicemail from her ex's number, then as a message from my HR department, then as something far more invasive. All because she couldn't let go of the version of reality where she wasn't the villain. And she was about to prove just how far she'd go to protect that version. Final update point: 3 days after she moved out, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. The voice was male, calm at first, then slurring with anger. "You think you can interfere with something you don't understand? You think you're some hero? Stay out of this. Stay away from Anna. You don't know what she's been through. You don't know what I've been through because of her." It took me 6 seconds to place the voice. Daniel, her ex, the one I'd never met, but whose shadow had been in our relationship the entire time. I replayed the message twice, not because the content mattered. It was typical drunken posturing, but because I needed to understand tone, intention, whether it hinted at escalation. I forwarded the voicemail to my lawyer and to Mark. Both responded within minutes. My lawyer, "Save everything." No replies. No contact. Mark, "He sounds unstable." Document it. I didn't feel fear exactly. More a dull, exhausted resignation. As if the universe was running out the clock on a situation I should have recognized months earlier. That same afternoon, my HR department emailed me. "We received a concerning report regarding your mental fitness and potential substance misuse. We are obligated to follow up." I felt my heart drop through the floor. Attached was an anonymous complaint. The language was vague, erratic, emotionally volatile, unreliable, but the timing was unmistakable. Anna had escalated, triangulated, weaponized the professional channels she knew could hurt me, exactly the way she had weaponized my grief during the inheritance request. I called HR, explained that I was dealing with a malicious personal situation and had documentation. They listened, asked for copies, and scheduled a follow-up. They weren't hostile, just cautious. I didn't blame them. But sitting in my office after that call, staring at the complaint, something inside me finally snapped into clarity. This wasn't personal vindictiveness. This was desperation, the kind that makes people rewrite reality itself to protect the story they need to believe. I wasn't fighting a person anymore. I was fighting a narrative. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "You're ruining everything. Please stop before it gets worse." No name, no signature, But the phrasing was pure Anna, a blend of accusation and plea, the implication that I was the architect of the disaster she created. I didn't reply. By then I had a folder on my desktop labeled Protection. Inside, Mark's report, screenshots, fake documents, Daniel's voicemail, emails, notes from the lawyer, timestamps, photos of the ring I found, logs of every transfer in and out of our accounts. Not for revenge, for safety, for sanity. People underestimate how grounding cold documentation can be when you've been gaslit long enough. 2 days later, my sister came over. She brought groceries and a kind of soft concern she rarely shows unless she senses I'm close to breaking. We sat on the couch while I explained everything, slowly, methodically, with the evidence laid out between us. She listened without interrupting, her face hardening in stages. When I finished, she leaned back and said quietly, "She's not living in the same reality as you, and she's punishing you for not joining hers." I nodded, feeling something inside me loosen, a knot I'd been tightening around myself for months. We talked for hours about my dad, about the inheritance, about the strange guilt I felt for being deceived. My sister said something that stayed with me. "You're not stupid for trusting someone you loved. You'd be stupid if you trusted her again." When she left, the apartment felt less like an empty shell and more like a place I lived in. A place that would slowly become mine again. Slowly, because none of this moves fast. The final contact came a week later. A single email from Anna. "I'm sorry things got out of hand. I'm going to take some space. I hope you find peace eventually. I didn't mean for any of this to turn into a fight." No acknowledgement. No accountability. No apology for what mattered. Just a reframing, a soft lens she could live with. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to repair. My lawyer advised filing a protective note with local authorities and finishing the financial separation paperwork. I did both. It felt strangely mundane, like closing out a subscription I forgot I even had. And then, life didn't magically improve. There was no triumphant epilogue, no cinematic reclaiming of confidence. The truth is quieter, heavier. I went through weeks of numbness, not sadness, not anger, just absence. I avoided dating apps. I avoided big decisions. I avoided my own reflection in mirrors longer than necessary because I didn't want to see how tired I looked. I focused on work, on cooking, on fixing small things around the apartment, because fixing small things reminded me that broken things can be repaired if they're honest about where the cracks are. I started going on nightly walks. I talked to my sister more. I met with my therapist twice a month. Little steps, boring steps, the kind that rebuild a person slowly, without spectacle. It's been 5 months now. The inheritance is still untouched, sitting where my dad meant it to sit, waiting for a future that isn't built on someone's secret obligations to a man she couldn't cut loose. I'm not paranoid now, but I'm cautious. Not jaded, but aware. Not angry, just older in some way I can feel, but can't quite articulate. What I learned is this: being lied to doesn't break you. Having your sense of reality warped does. And coming back from that isn't about winning or proving anything. It's about rebuilding trust in your own judgment, your own perception, your own ability to see red flags even when they're painted in soft colors. There's no victory in this story, just clarity, just distance, just the slow reassembly of a life interrupted by someone else's delusion. And that's enough. Not clean, not triumphant, but grounded. A life that's mine again, piece by quiet piece.